Audible 2456.
Stay the Save is back with part 2 of Michael's favorite games of the years. In this episode, we will cover my favorite games that came out between the years of 2006 all the way up through today. It's going to be a fun trip through memory lane for me and hopefully for you at home as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the show. If this is your first time with Stay the Save, welcome. We have been a video game book club podcast going for over 3 years now. Last week, because of reasons I discussed in the previous episode, I decided to change things up for a little bit. Since this is a part 2, I recommend that you go back and listen to part 1 of the Games of the Year's discussions, in which I discussed my favorite games from 1990 to 2005 before moving on to this one. But if you're really not nostalgic for games of the 1990s and the mid-2000s is more your speed, welcome to Stay the Save. I am Michael, and kind of to reframe why I wanted to do this, I kind of wanted to, since this is a new era for the show, I kind of wanted to reintroduce myself as well as my taste in video games to all of you. And there's no better way in my mind to do that than to catalog my personal history with video games, because they've been like an ever-present part of my life. Ordinarily, before the main discussion, we would like to go into games that we've been playing on our off time. What have we been playing besides the main games for the show? And I haven't really been playing anything new, so it's not really worth going more into. I played a lot more of F-Zero 99. That game continues to be a surprise in that no one really saw it coming except for a leak beforehand that everybody was, including me, had fingers crossed that it would be F-Zero GX, and it turned out to be an F-Zero game based on the Super Nintendo game. And I was like, alright, that's not exactly what I wanted, but it's fine, I'm just glad to get more F-Zero. It turns out it's a lot better than just here's a reskin of the Super Nintendo F-Zero. There's a lot of thought into that game, and they've just added new courses that I haven't got around to playing yet as of the time of this recording. I hope to jump in there very soon. That game is great. I am terrible at it. I have not won a single race yet, but I came in top 3 in a mini Grand Prix, so progress is progress, I guess. I did start up Kirby and the Amazing Mirror last night because that just dropped on Nintendo Switch Online. That game seems really cool. Is sort of like a light Metroidvania in that the levels are very open. You explore to collect maps so you can find your way around, and all the different areas are connected through this hub world with mirrors that can teleport you to different areas in the stages. But overall, at least this first section is one big giant open world so far. I don't know if there's more zones, but I got one of the pieces of the mirror, so I don't know if that will take me to the end of the game or just a separate, not connected zone. But overall, I am really interested to play more of it. So now let's get on with the main show. One thing I learned about myself last time through cataloging this is that I am really, really into arcade racers, much more than I thought. Like I talked about Cruisin' World, Daytona USA, the F-Zero series, of course, and it's like every year in my honorable mentions catalog there was another arcade racer that appeared. So let me go over the ground rules of how this works again, just a refresher. When it comes to release dates, I'm US based. So my release dates are based on the United States release, unless the United States release is emulation. For example, Fire Emblem 1 released in 1990 in Japan. It didn't release into the US until 2020. I consider that a 1990 game over a 2020 game. However, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past came out in 1991. In Japan, it came out in 1992, so I consider that a 2002 game. So we last left off with 2005. Near the end of the PlayStation 2, the GameCube was already fizzling out at that point, very sadly. And Xbox has gone all in on the Xbox 360, leaving the Xbox behind. So the PS2 is the only thing carrying the torch for that generation. So when it comes to games that I personally played in 2006, this is a weird transitional time. I wouldn't get another console until the Wii in 2007. And I wouldn't get a next-gen console until 2011. I ended up with a laptop, I believe, in 2009, so that freed open the space for me to play some of the games that came out for that generation of consoles that were also on PC. That's where I played some indie games, and that's where I played some of the games we'll talk about in the late 2000s. I played on PC for the first time on a very crappy computer at very low frame rates. So starting off with 2006, the end of the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 2 was where I was mostly playing everything, and I think most of the games on here are just straight up PlayStation 2 games, with the exception of, I believe, 2 of these are not found on the PlayStation 2. So let's get into it. My honorable mentions for 2006, gonna start out with Flat Out 2. It's a racer, but not really an arcade racer. This is more in the veins of like the Demolition Derby games, but it has a lot of mini games and extra modes. Like, there's a sort of Coliseum mode with a bunch of stuff involving like curling. So the main like gimmick of the Flat Out series is that it's a racing game, except you can hit a button and your driver will eject from the car. So all of the mini games in this sort of like Coliseum mode are sort of framed around that idea. For example, you drive your car up to a launching pad, then you launch yourself out of the cartboard and basically play darts. There's an enhanced port of this on the Xbox 360, which I got later, called Flat Out Ultimate Carnage. It basically includes all the stuff from Flat Out 2, but I remember renting this game as a kid and loving like sort of the humor in it, from the guy screaming as he ejects from the car and goes bowling or curling or playing darts or stone skipping, where you have to launch yourself at a particular angle so that you can skip your ragdoll body across the water. And that was a lot of fun. It's a very stupid game, but I love it. Next is Dead Rising, the first Dead Rising. It's one of those games that is great in concept, but in execution is pretty annoying. I love Dead Rising. It is set in a mall, very much like sort of a pastiche of Dawn of the Dead, the George Romero zombie movies. You play as Frank West, a photographer who's going in to document the sort of zombies taking over. So you're going into stores in this mall, sort of scrounging up whatever you can to fight the zombies. Like, you're using like cans of sodas that you find, or my favorite store to go into was like the music stores, because you can like hit them with guitars, or go in the sports store, get golf clubs and baseball bats to hit the zombies with. But where the game got mostly annoying is that it was deliberately stupid hard, in that you would level up and get random upgrades. They weren't on a set track, or you weren't choosing them. The upgrades they would give you was random. So you could like be at level 3 and unlock a drop kick. Whereas if you were to play it, you could get level 3 and get like a boost in health or something. That was, from my memory, which could be wrong, it was very random in that regard. But also, with the game being so ridiculously difficult, you would have to, if you couldn't progress anymore because you were too weak, instead of grinding, you could go back to the beginning of the game with your save and carry on and just keep going until you... So Dead Rising is all about completing the game, playing the game until you hit a brick wall, and then going back and playing the game again. It could have been done better than that, and another game in this series would end up doing that concept a little bit better. Next, we have Destroy All Humans 2. I really, really like the Destroy All Humans series. Destroy All Humans 2 being a honorable mention here. This one was set in the 1960s versus 1950s. It was a lot. They went all in on the more destructible environments and like the camouflage system that the first game had. Destroy All Humans would be an honorable mention, but there were 2004 and 2005. I can't remember which one it came out in. Were very crowded years, so it couldn't quite make it. I haven't played the remakes. I wonder if the remakes are good. It's just something I haven't been. It's always something I'm like, yeah, I should definitely check those out and just have it, even though I really like the Destroy All Humans games. 2006's Tomb Raider Legend. This was my first Tomb Raider game that I enjoyed. I rented one during the PlayStation era, around the time the Angelina Jolie film came out. My parents really liked it, so when we were at the Blockbuster, they were encouraging me, you should check out a Tomb Raider game. And I was like, okay, I haven't. They don't really seem like my thing, but okay. And Tomb Raider Chronicles was the one I played, and that one was the bad one of the PlayStation era. So I was just like, I guess Tomb Raider's just not for me. Tomb Raider Legend looked really cool. From like the advertising, I rented this and beat it in a weekend. I had a great time with it. I could not go back and tell you anything about it, but that I really enjoyed it. Next is a game I put over 100 hours in on the PlayStation 2. Me and my neighbor would play this a lot in 2-player mode. Samurai Warriors 2. This was before Muso games were freaking everywhere. This was like right on like the precipice of that. Samurai Warriors 2 is a lot of fun. There's a lot of like what if scenarios, so many characters, a lot of campaigns. There's a lot of content here. And I remember it's such a time sink. You can waste so much time in this game, and I put over 100 hours into it. The next game is another time sink that I put a lot of time into. WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. This might be the best wrestling game of the GameCube. It's either this or SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. This has a more expanded roster. This one has some really excellent creator wrestler stuff. This has a huge assortment of modes. This was the first time, I didn't play 2006. This was the first time I experienced modes like the Elimination Chamber, which is a lot of fun. There's a lot more customizable matches here. SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 is great. Oh, also, the General Manager mode. So what you do is you are the manager of either SmackDown or Raw, and you customize the shows and your roster to basically run the entire program and to try to get better ratings. GM mode is a lot of fun. There's also a versus mode on GM mode, so 2 players can make their own wrestling shows, which is a blast. So that's it for the honorable mentions. Now for my top 3 of 2006. Number 3 is Bully. Bully might have been number 1 for this year if we didn't play it more recently for the show. I like Bully. I really like Bully. It is very unique in terms of the games that Rockstar would make, in that it is set in a school. It's dealing with a lot more low-stakes stuff, like just trying to rise up the ranks of the school and everything. Like when we did our game club of this, one thing I really liked is that in Grand Theft Auto, you'd be doing missions for like hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars near the end of the game. In this game, in the first like leg, you highball a guy to like $5, and he was like, "Whoa, that's a lot of money, man." So I really like the low stakes nature of it. What the best part about Bully, I think, is the open world system and sort of the light faction system. The open world and seeing all the cliques interact with each other in the open world was so well done at the time, and my main thing I'm hopeful with a Bully 2 is something like a combo of that and the Nemesis system from Shadows of Mordor, in that like sort of rising up the ranks in the school, different cliques having different students that are like sort of the leaders of them. I would like to see that be more dynamic and change either through the story or just things that can happen in the environment and stuff that you influence. I think would be cool for Bully 2. But Bully 1, it's a really great game. Some stuff hasn't aged well, both in terms of like some of the story stuff and some of the gameplay stuff we would do later. Like we would handle like auto saving and everything later on, but that's just like a product of the PS2. And there's some aspects of with the story, especially in some of the Jock storyline stuff, that just doesn't. I don't know if it was good at the time. Like, yeah, we talked about that particular bit, the Mandy storyline, ad nauseum in the Game Club stuff. But just know, it still doesn't make me think the game is like any less great. It's just something you gotta take into consideration. But Bully's a top 3 game. I really like Bully. I want to revisit it again someday. I know I will, because this is a very nostalgic game for me, because I couldn't play a lot of the other Rockstar games at the time. I was too young to play Grand Theft Auto when this game came out. That wasn't stopping people from my school playing Grand Theft Auto, but my parents were a lot more aware of the games I was playing, or they tried to be at least. I would sneak in a couple things here and there, but I could never sneak in Grand Theft Auto. Number 2 is a launch title for the Wii that I didn't play on the Wii. I played this on the GameCube for a little bit because I rented this game twice, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. I would go back and get this game on Wii, and a few years later and finish it. I love Twilight Princess. For a while, Majora's Mask was sort of seen as the black sheep of the Zelda series. Now I think it's sort of shifted into Twilight Princess. People are much harsher on Twilight Princess than most of the other mainline Zelda games, with like the exception of Zelda 2. I'm hopeful and more confident that as people who have played it, people who are like, this is their very first Zelda, start to sort of, they're the ones to write the articles, they're the ones to make the videos. I have a feeling people born in like the 2004, 2005 range is going to be like, oh no, Twilight Princess is actually the best Zelda. Here's 10 reasons why. And I'll be like, yeah, it's doing a lot of stuff here. It's sort of a repeat of the highlights of Ocarina of Time, but the dungeon design in this game is fantastic, and the boss fights in this game are probably some of the best boss fights in all of Zelda, including a fight with Zant near the very end of the game. I'm going to spoil some stuff here, so skip ahead about 30 seconds or so, but I'll give you a second. The near final boss of this game, not the final boss, but like once you're approaching that, you fight Zant, who is like an amalgamation of all the boss fights, and from what I remember, he's teleporting you to the other temples that you did the boss fights in. Sort of like a highlight reel of the game that you just played, and it is freaking awesome. I love the Zant fight so much. But the game itself is really cool. It's probably, in terms of visuals, it's probably the one that hasn't aged the most gracefully, because they sort of went for a pseudo-realistic, darker tone with this. I know the infamous Blades Will Bleed trailer is a key example, but I think if they ever put Twilight Princess and like Wind Waker on Switch, I think people are going to be surprised how good Twilight Princess is after hearing so much negativity for so long in that. My number 1 game for 2006 is Guitar Hero 2. This might be the pinnacle. This or Guitar Hero 3 might be the pinnacle of rhythm plastic instrument games. Such a very strong set list, interesting like avatar characters, but yeah, this game was so good. It brought sort of like the arcade rhythm game experience home in a way that no other game did. Sure, you can buy dance pads for Dance Dance Revolution or something, but man, Guitar Hero 2 was so good, and it introduced me to a wide swath of music that I wasn't listening to. And it was a good way to engage with like my dad in music that he really liked. Like when I got to Freebird, I remember Dad like singing along to Freebird and being like, Now having no context for what that song was, like, that song? Is like, yeah, I love Led Zeppelin, and that's just a really cool thing to like bond over. Like the music of Guitar Hero 2 was something really cool. Now we're moving on to 2007. 2007 is what many consider to be the best year for gaming of all time, and I don't know if I can fully agree with that after listing it out. What is great about it is that 2007 is a year that so many franchises got kickstarted in this year. We'll go over a few, but one that I don't mention here is the first Assassin's Creed started it this year. There's some series that started this year. There's some really groundbreaking seminal games in this year. So I believe this 2007 is the year the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 generation really got started. And because many people love the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 generation, I can kind of see why 2007 would be like a banner year for that time. So let's get into the honorable mentions of 2007. First honorable mention, the first Witcher game. The first Witcher game does a lot right. It's a lot more rough around the edges. I think Yahtzee on Zero Punctuation said the combat system was like a spreadsheet in Excel, which I fully agree with. The writing's really great, a bit weird. There's a lot of like open environments. The map I remember being terrible, but I played The Witcher after playing The Witcher 2, and I really liked what I played of The Witcher, but the problem is I got to a boss fight I couldn't beat because I leveled up incorrectly. It's one of those RPGs where you can't respec, and if you get stuck, you either load a previous save and a level grind, or just do your best to cheese it. I got so annoyed with that boss fight, so I never went back and finished The Witcher 1, sadly, but I really liked what I played. Next for 2007, we got Super Paper Mario. This is another game I rented. I was renting a lot of games at this time. Super Paper Mario is very different from the other Paper Mario games in that it is a 2D, 3D platformer hybrid. It's one of those hold the Wii controller sideways kind of games, if you know what I'm talking about. But the main thing I remember from Super Paper Mario is the story and the writing being like super creative and super funny. There is a bit where basically Bowser and Peach get married, but they're hypnotized into doing it, so they're acting like they're completely drunk. It is pretty funny. Next is BioShock. BioShock, I know, shocker, is not a... BioShocker is not a top 3 game, but I still like BioShock. It did incredible stuff for story. I think I just went back and played BioShock 2 late, where I thought I was expecting a lot more. It's still a fantastic video game. Rapture's incredible. You have a great villain with Andrew Ryan. You have the Would You Kindly twist that everybody references. BioShock is a really, really great game. I just don't love it, and that makes me sad that I don't feel as strongly about it as a lot of people do. But we still have Uncharted Drake's Fortune. This was not the Uncharted game that made me love Uncharted that comes later. I feel like a lot of people feel that same way. This was Naughty Dog's first foray into cover shooting. It's kind of more in line with the standard Tomb Raider formula that people don't realize. They think it will just play like another Uncharted game when they go back to it. But this feels more in line with where Tomb Raider was at the time. It fixes a lot of things that Tomb Raider would kind of fall off of. Like, when we got to Tomb Raider Legend, when we played it for the show, I went back and played Uncharted, being like, a lot of the stuff that Tomb Raider Legend got wrong, Uncharted had already figured out how to make that work. So Uncharted came out, and this was a game that I think told the Tomb Raider team that they had to change up the formula a bit, and they went sort of back around into Uncharted, but more of emphasis on like open world and like survivalist stuff that Uncharted doesn't do, whereas Uncharted plays more like a straightforward narrative single player adventure, whereas the first Tomb Raider kind of plays more or less like a Metroidvania. So Uncharted had its start here, it would become a great series, and Uncharted made Tomb Raider a better series too, I believe. It's still just an honorable mention though. Sorry, Uncharted. Guitar Hero 3 is an honorable mention. Guitar Hero 3 should have probably been in the top 3 in any other year, but the problem is the top 3 in 2007 for me is super stacked, where it just couldn't stand up to it. So now number 3, the original Portal. We're now going to games that I talked about playing on my crappy computer. I love Portal. What's there to say about Portal? You can beat it in an hour, but the writing, the humor, the villain of GLaDOS is so brilliant. Some of the best, most tightest like level design out there. This game spawned like so many memes, so many like references on internet culture just came from Portal, an hour-long video game that basically defined the internet for that little time in which it came out. It was, I'm going to use the phrase groundbreaking, but yeah, it was groundbreaking. Portal was a fantastic video game that is definitely in the top 3. Just the fact that I can hold on to that hour-long experience and rank it so highly tells you how good Portal is. Number 2 of 2007, Super Mario Galaxy. This is my favorite 3D Mario game. It's the first Mario game whose soundtrack was done by an orchestra. The level design is fantastic. I love the gravity mechanics of this game. It has so much charm, so much personality. I had a huge crush on Rosalina as a kid. I just love everything about Super Mario Galaxy. It is an incredible video game that is so fun to go back to today. And number 1 for 2007 is Mass Effect. This is an incredible RPG. Mass Effect is the result of telling the KOTOR people to make their own original sci-fi universe, and it pays off super well. Mass Effect tells a really great story, has some of the best characters and best world building and world design of like any sci-fi universe, in especially ones created by video games. This is easily probably the best sci-fi universe ever created by a video game. I'm throwing shade to Halo there, but I don't care. I love Mass Effect and I love the universe, and I want more games set here. You can set tabletop RPGs in this universe. It's so detailed. Mass Effect 1's only glaring flaw was the combat, but in the Legendary Edition that came out just a couple years ago, they ended up fixing that. So now Mass Effect has elevated like even higher for me. I love this series, and I love the first game so much. 2008. I don't really have a big introduction to 2008 because only 2 of the games here I played in 2008. Everything else I played like at least 2 or more years later. I was very late to the party on playing games from 2008. Starting with honorable mention, Civilization Revolution. This was a game I got in college, so many years later, I very much enjoyed it. This is sort of like a streamlined port of Civilization 4, and this is what got me into like 4X strategy, and by 4X strategy I mean just playing Civilization 5 later on. I really like this game. It's sort of like the streamlined diplomacy system. Civilization Revolution is a perfect game to play if you never played a Civ before or played many strategy games before, because it kind of gets your feet wet, and then you can dive deeper after that. Next is Fallout 3. I like Fallout 3. I don't love Fallout 3. I don't think that the characters or the writing was very strong here, but I liked some of the like RPG mechanic stuff and some of the towns that you get to explore. I like a lot of the factions you meet here. There's a lot going here with Fallout 3. I just like another Fallout game a little better. Next, we have the criminally underrated Mirror's Edge. I love Mirror's Edge. It's a first-person, free-running action game where the emphasis is not on using like guns for combat. The emphasis is using like melee combat as a way to push enemies away. It's mostly about more dodging and evading, and the world design is really cool. It's very much sleek, white, corporatized future city, and that there's sort of sprinkles of color, and everything peppered red in the environment is things that you can free run on or use to advance yourself through the level. I really like Mirror's Edge. Next is Saints Row 2. Saints Row 2 proves that the Saints Row series is more than just a Grand Theft Auto clone. It's a Grand Theft Auto clone with a lot of heart and a lot of humor. A surprisingly like really good curated soundtrack here. It's just a lot of fun. You can run up to people and do wrestling moves on them. The story has a lot of like really fun moments, and some of the characters that you meet are really cool. Guitar Hero World Tour. This was one of the 2 games I got in 2008 because I was a Guitar Hero kid. I love Guitar Hero. I got this one for my Wii. This was one of the first games I would end up taking online, with the exception of another game. So I really like playing Guitar Hero World Tour, especially online. I like the set list here. There was some Blink-182 and Paramore on it. So I, of course, was a big fan of that soundtrack. I didn't get the set with the instruments. I just played it like a Guitar Hero game. So you can make this game even better by treating it like Rock Band, but I didn't. I just played like a Guitar Hero game, but still had a great time. Next is Gears of War 2. I wouldn't play Gears of War 2 until much later. I bought this game because I really wanted to play this game online for some reason. Why would I want to play Gears of War 2 in online co-op when I don't really typically play these games in online co-op? It's because my girlfriend was a really big Gears of War fan. And when I was away at college, we would bond by playing Gears of War 2 together, playing the entire campaign. This girlfriend would end up becoming my wife. So Gears of War 2 is pretty special to me. As a game, it's not top 3, but it's an honorable mention here just for that experience. Gears of War is not really my speed, but I had a great time just playing it with her and chatting with her while we went through hordes of enemies with our Lancer chainsaw assault rifles. So that's pretty cool. Now for the top 3 of 2008. Super Smash Bros. Brawl is number 3. I got this game day and date. I was super excited for Smash Bros. Brawl. What's here is a really good Smash Bros. Game with a lot of content, a really like in-depth single-player mode. But it's one of those things where you don't realize people hate it until you go online. I wasn't really active online until a year or 2 later. But finding out that Smash Bros. Brawl was kind of the black sheep of the series just like sort of shocked me. But I still really like it. My main complaint was that because I played with a GameCube controller, I'm like, this doesn't really feel a lot different than Melee, just a little bit slower. But yeah, for a while, I would call Smash Bros. Brawl like my favorite fighting game, which is like a very controversial statement in 2 communities. But again, I was just coming out of dumb kid, and now I'm in like dumb teenager territory here. Number 2 is a game I would play a couple years later. Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead is a fantastic game. It's a really great online game with its co-op modes and everything. They don't make games like this anymore. They tried to with Back 4 Blood, and I feel like whenever they try to capture the magic of Left 4 Dead, just something is missing. I couldn't tell you what it is that makes Left 4 Dead so great, besides the fact that it's like a very much of the time game in terms of its mechanics and being ingrained to like that online ecosystem. But Left 4 Dead is a fantastic zombie game. And my number one favorite game of 2008 should be a shock to no one. It is Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. Another game I wouldn't play until years later, 2012 to be exact. But I avoided spoilers for this because I didn't have a PlayStation 3 for the longest time. But being a Metal Gear Solid fan, having something that I couldn't play just made me so mad. I didn't look up videos on it. I didn't want to know anything about Metal Gear Solid 4. I remember when Snake was in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I was in a GameStop, and I asked, "Hey, is there any chance Metal Gear Solid 4 might end up on the Wii?" Again, I'm a dumb teenager at this time. The guy straight up laughed at me and went, "Yeah, that will never happen." So yeah, 4 years after that, I would finally play it, and I would absolutely love it. Metal Gear Solid 4 is probably the weakest of the mainline Metal Gear Solid games, but it holds a special place in my heart for an unabashedly crazy story, some really excellent gameplay stuff here, and just giving a sort of finality to the Metal Gear Solid series. But that doesn't dismiss the fact that this game is stupid as hell and makes some insane choices. But I still love it. Now it's time for 2009. This is a pretty light year for me. Not a lot to go on here in terms of honorable mentions. We're going to start with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I had a lot of fun with this game. I really liked my first image I think of in my head when I think of Modern Warfare 2 is that Washington, D.C. level with like the blood red sky, very red dawn. I like it. It's a really short campaign, but I had a lot of fun with it, especially playing on my crappy laptop. And bringing my entire team down because I really liked Team Deathmatch, and I could only play this game at like 15 frames a second. So I'm really sorry to anybody who played with me online in 2009 or 2010, whenever I got this. Assassin's Creed 2. A vast improvement on Assassin's Creed 1. I actually beat this one. Take that, Assassin's Creed 1. And I think is one of two Assassin's Creed games that I played to completion to the very end. I really like it. Gets a little weird at the very end of that game in a way I was not a fan of, but it's still a really good game. I really like Ezio. Infamous. Infamous was a game I wouldn't play until I got my PlayStation 3 a few years later, but it's a pretty fun superhero action adventure open world game. You have lightning powers, and I really like Zeke, your companion character, but the best part about Infamous is the ending and where it sets up Infamous 2 to go. Batman Arkham Asylum is an honorable mention, which you would think, shocker. And I was kind of shocked too after playing Arkham Asylum for the game club and realizing that I love the first half of Arkham Asylum. The second half kind of loses its way. And it's still a really great game, but it has more problems than people remember Arkham Asylum for having. Now for the top 3. This was the first game I bought for my computer, The Sims 3. I really like The Sims 3. It has and it's just the base game. I didn't get any of the expansion packs for it. I just had a lot of fun just creating Sims, going in the house designer, making some houses, and just, it's a very relaxing game to play. I had so much fun with The Sims 3. Number 2 is Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. This is where Uncharted gets started. This was the game that turned around the fate of the PlayStation 3. It is a really, really fun cinematic story with excellent set pieces. I really like Uncharted 2. Number 1 is Left 4 Dead 2. This is an improvement on Left 4 Dead in so many ways. They would eventually add all of the Left 4 Dead 1 maps in there. So Left 4 Dead 2 is, as a package, is absolutely incredible because it blends. It was just, hey, we're combining both games together. They would add free DLC on PC, some like new maps and storylines, and I really like Left 4 Dead 2. It's an incredible video game, and it's my number 1 of 2009. So for 2010, this is, I think, where this generation of consoles, the Xbox 360 generation, really, really gets good. There is a lot of great stuff here and has a very solid top 3. It's like all platforms here we're firing on all cylinders. We got really great Wii games. There's some really good PlayStation 3 stuff here, some really good PC stuff, and some great Xbox 360 stuff. So let's get into it. There's a lot of honorable mentions here, so I'm going to cut through them pretty quick. Fallout New Vegas. It is much better than Fallout 3. The writing is much better. I like the faction system. I like the companions. I like your weird robot dog. And my favorite part is I love that there's a faction called the Kings who just worship Elvis Presley. All they know about him was that he was a great king of Las Vegas, and that is amazing. Splinter Cell Conviction. I would play this game, I would rent it and beat it in a couple days, but the main highlight here was playing with my really good friend in co-op mode. That game has an incredible co-op mode. It is a lot of fun. Splinter Cell Conviction is great. Vanquish. Vanquish was a game I didn't enjoy so much in the first half, but the second half is freaking great. A really fast-paced shooter with a couple of problems in terms of its mechanics. We did a game club of this if you want to listen to the full breakdown of Vanquish, but Vanquish is really good. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the video game. This is a 2D beat-em-up on a game based on a movie that would define my entire personality. A little too much. I'm a little embarrassed by it, but hey, I still love Scott Pilgrim. I have all the books. I am really excited for that animated series. I'm interested to see how people take to the slower pacing of the book, because that movie was off the wall insane. It seems like people are like, why is it so slow? I'm like, get ready. The books are like 80% slice of life compared to the movie. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Just Cause 2. To quote Yahtzee from Zero Punctuation here, you unlock the main missions by playing the side missions. You unlock the side missions by blowing shit up. That's all you need to know about Just Cause 2. It's a lot of fun. It captured the joy of the Mercenaries, the first game, for me here. So I really liked Just Cause 2 a lot. Heavy Rain on the PS3. This is the best that I played of the Quantic Dream games. Also, because I'm referencing Quantic Dreams, David Cage absolutely sucks. So if you don't want to play Heavy Rain, I completely understand by that regard. But Heavy Rain's a good one of those. It's a really interesting murder mystery that I think kind of just got forgotten with the time. But Heavy Rain's really good. Call of Duty Black Ops. Call of Duty Black Ops is like the full package for a really good Call of Duty. It has an excellent campaign, really, really fun multiplayer, and the zombies mode. I really like the zombies mode. One of the guest hosts for the show, John, will attest to zombies. That's the reason he plays Call of Duty, is the zombies mode. Zombies mode is really good. Call of Duty Black Ops, a really great package. Probably the best value you would get for a Call of Duty ever, maybe. Next is Bayonetta. I really like the first Bayonetta. I like a lot of the boss fights here. And, yeah, it's a really great character action game. Some interesting mystery stuff going on, and it's just frantic and off the wall. I love it. Another honorable mention for 2010 is Dead Rising 2. Dead Rising 2 is a much better game than Dead Rising 1. I still did not finish it. I think if they went just a bigger mall for Dead Rising 3 and cleaned up a lot of the stuff, we'd have like a perfect Dead Rising game. I don't know if we ever have the perfect Dead Rising game. They all have their problems, but Dead Rising 2 is really good. Has a really fun like American Gladiators multiplayer mode too. This was back at the time when games had shoehorned in multiplayer modes that didn't necessarily need them, but Dead Rising 2 was one of those, but it was a lot of fun. Just like American Gladiators with zombies. What more could you ask for? Next is Alpha Protocol. This is a really stupid RPG. Has questionable writing and very, very poor combat. But the way in which your choices connected, the dialogue system, all that, the RPG element of Alpha Protocol was top notch. It's an underrated game, but I would say it's underrated, but it's probably properly where it needs to be. This sort of pseudo cult classic. Here's another cult classic that is getting a sequel that I'm really excited for, Alan Wake. This was the first game we played for the Game Club. We talked extensively about Alan Wake, our theories for Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake is just a game that captures what it's going for better than most games that try to emulate something. This is a game that goes all in on the aesthetic of its Stephen King miniseries and nails it. It is freaking great. I love Alan Wake. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is an honorable mention here. Some people like it better than the first one. I am very much not in that camp. Galaxy 2 has some incredible levels, but I just like the vibe of Galaxy 1 a lot more. I'm still mad that they cut the hub world. I really liked the hub world. Now, let's get to the top 3 of 2010. This is a very stacked top 3. Number 3 is Red Dead Redemption. This and Bully are my favorite Rockstar games. Red Dead is a game that is fully ingrained into the Wild West Western aesthetic. It is infinitely better than Red Dead Revolver, which when I heard the name Red Dead Redemption, I was like, is this a sequel to Red Dead Revolver? Wait, it's an open world cowboy game? That sounds pretty cool. But didn't we already have Gun? Didn't Gun try to do that? But then here comes the Grand Theft Auto people, and they just made a really fantastic game. John Marston is a great character. A lot of the missions and set pieces are in this game are really great, and I really like the music here. It's a total package of an open world game. Red Dead Redemption is really great. Number 2 is Civilization 5. Might be cheating here because Civilization 5 becomes really great with the expansions that come out later, but I love Civilization 5. This was when I got really deep into this type of strategy game. I vastly love Civilization 5. I am Team Egypt all the way. I always play as Egypt. This is one of those, if you know, you know. If you played Civilization 5, you know how great it is. If you haven't, then it's kind of hard to explain why you might like Civilization 5. So just give it a look. If it's not your thing, it's not going to be your thing. But hey, if you like Civilization 5, you really like Civilization 5. Number 1 is my favorite game of all time, Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 takes everything about the first game, sort of streamlines it, but as a result has a great sort of disconnected story in that you were visiting a section of the galaxy you didn't have access to in the first game to uncover this sort of mystery that's happening. It's a really great narrative here, but the main reason why Mass Effect 2 is my favorite game is the characters. The cast of characters that you get in this game are nothing short of amazing. Every single character, with the exception of Jacob, are some of the best companions you'll ever get in any video game. You get Garrus again, who is a lot darker this time around because he became a vigilante. You have Legion, a robot of a race that was your enemy in the first game. You have Jack, a prisoner who was tortured by the group that you're currently working with. It all ties in together for this really excellent game, this really excellent story. I love Mass Effect 2 to this day. It is still my favorite game of all time. Now it's time for 2011. 2011 is a pretty stacked year, like 2010 was, so let's get into it. Honorable mention, Infamous 2. Infinitely better than the first game. But seriously, Infamous 2 has a much more interesting open world with New Marais, sort of like this New Orleans analog. The combat, especially the melee combat, is a lot better. Has a more like interesting story in that it's like counting down. It's a linear open world game in terms of its story, but the story has like gravity and weight to it because it's counting down to this disastrous event that you need to prepare for and get ready for. So there's more stakes in the story. It's a very good game. I really like Infamous 2. Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception is an honorable mention here. At the time, this was my favorite Uncharted. The story is kind of a repeat of what we've seen before, sort of a highlight reel of like what we've seen in like the past games sort of mixed together for like this grand, what we thought would be like the grand finale of the Uncharted trilogy before they moved on to Thief's End. But the set pieces here are freaking great. I like the opening in London. I really love the fight with the pirates where you're swinging from one boat to another. I really love the flooding ship near the end of the game, and the of course you have to mention the plane sequence. That's one of the most like frantic action sequences in any game, especially for the time. Flying on the plane and then free falling from the plane as you fall to the desert. So good. That movie wishes it could do that sequence half as good as this. Next we got Ace Combat Assault Horizon. People hate this game in the Ace Combat series, and it makes me so mad that they do. Very controversial change by pulling it out of the Strange Reel and putting it in our world, as well as the emphasis on the dogfight mode combat system, going full arcadey and ditching the sim part of Ace Combat for a full arcadey experience. But as we established, I really like arcade racers and stuff, so it introduces something called dogfight mode, which when you hit two buttons together, you go right behind the plane you are dogfighting, and then it zooms in where you can really use the machine gun bullets and just shred the plane in front of you and cover your screen in oil. I think the tagline for this game is "Make Metal Bleed." It's super edgy and super dumb, but I love Assault Horizon. Next is Bastion. Bastion is a really special game. It's really short but to the point, and for a while you're like, this is good, but I don't really see the point of this until you get to the last hour. The last hour of Bastion is absolutely incredible and makes that entire experience. We did a game club of that if you want to check that out. Next is Mortal Kombat 9. Mortal Kombat 9 is one of my favorite fighting games. As a Mortal Kombat fan that hasn't really played the series in years, you can see there's Mortal Kombat games missing from 2005 to 2011. And that's because I sort of fell off the series. I really loved Deception. Armageddon was for me, but missed out on Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. So when Mortal Kombat 9 came around, and it was sort of a retelling in an alternate universe of the first three Mortal Kombat games whose lore I was very familiar with, I loved it. Mortal Kombat 9 story is a love letter to the games that came before it. Even tying in the story stuff from Armageddon and not just throwing it out. Not being just like a straight up reboot, but sort of a sequel to that era of Mortal Kombat was very great to see, and I loved where it ended off in a way that they could, and they have, do their own thing from here. Like, we're not just going to retail Mortal Kombats for Deadly Alliance and Deception again. We're going to take this and do our own thing, which is super exciting. Next game is Portal 2, sadly an honorable mention because the rest of 2011 is so stacked. Portal 2 is the first game, but much more. Everything of the first game, more story, more like memorable characters and villains, and just more puzzle mechanics, more vast environments, and the introduction of Cave Johnson, played by the amazing J.K. Simmons. Next honorable mention here is Batman Arkham City. Batman Arkham City, I haven't gone back to since I beat the new game plus of this game back in college. I 100%ed this game and got all the Riddler trophies, beat the game on New Game Plus. I played the hell out of Batman Arkham City, and after not liking Batman Arkham Asylum as much as I did before, I am kind of scared to go back to Arkham City, being like, what if I don't like this one as much? Because this is one I absolutely love. It's what I want to do for the show someday, to see if the game still holds up, but I'm kind of scared too. Now for my top 3. Deus Ex Human Revolution. This was the first time I played a game like this in terms of like being a sort of immersive sim. More of that style of game. Something that was akin to the original Deus Ex or like Thief the Dark Project, games I have not played, but Deus Ex was sort of my introduction into those gameplay styles. I really like the dialogue system. I like the story. I like the world. I don't care what anyone says. I like that yellow filter over everything. I really like Deus Ex Human Revolution. Number 2 is a game that I think is still highly ambitious, and I really love it. It's underrated in that I don't think it gets as much love as it deserves. L.A. Noire. L.A. Noire is a super interesting game in that you are a detective during the 1940s, and you play as a character with a dark past that sort of unravels as you go through the story, kind of like the old like film noir movies of old. This is another one of those games that leans fully into its style, and the main like quote-unquote gimmick of this game at the time was its motion scan technology, where they scanned actors' faces so you could have to analyze if they're lying or if they're telling the truth. And if they're lying, you have to present evidence of something that you found in the environment or something that another character told them that would disprove what they're saying. Cole Phelps is a fantastic main character. I like that you go from like rooting for this guy to sort of hating him at the end, which is a sort of brave choice to make for your main character, making you deliberately feel sort of gross by playing this guy. It's a great game. It's very easy to pick up now. You can even play this on Switch, and I heard that port is actually really good too. And my number 1 game of 2011 is The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I really immersed myself into Skyrim. This was a time when I got really into the game and put like 60 hours into this game in like a week. Skyrim was the first time I did this with a game where I would pick it up, play it nonstop for a week or 2 weeks straight, then put it down for like 5 to 6 months, and then come back to it. I would do that for a few years. It's a game that most of you have played, so I don't want to go too detailed into my experience with Skyrim, because what makes Skyrim great is that everyone's experience is different. We all have our Skyrim stories to tell, with just stuff that we have found or discovered, or mostly just exchanging what glitches we ran into. Now we're moving on to 2012. 2012 was the year I got my PlayStation 3. So what's interesting here is that aside from a few games that I would play in 2012, a lot of my time in 2012 would be me going back and playing the games I missed, like the infamous games, the Uncharted games. But that being said, there is still a good amount here that released in 2012 that I really liked. Starting through these honorable mentions, Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 Golden was the first time I remember really completing a JRPG of this scale. And I'm counting Persona 4 Golden as a original release when it's... because it does a lot more to Persona 4 than just retreading that game. It is that game in its entirety, but there's a new character. There's a lot more to the storyline here in a way that I think differentiates itself from the main release. Next for 2012, Hotline Miami. Hotline Miami is a tough as nails indie game that I played on the PlayStation Vita. Yes, I had a Vita. It's a lot of fun. FTL Faster Than Light. FTL is extremely tough. I don't think I've ever beaten this game. That being said, I really like its sort of like simple style. It's a roguelike game where you are managing a ship and trying to chart your course across the galaxy. And in the end, you do a big boss fight. I've never beaten that big boss fight, but had a lot of fun with FTL. Next is a really underrated game called Gravity Rush. Gravity Rush is a game that came out on the Vita. You can also play this on PlayStation 4 with the remastered port. Gravity Rush has so much charm and whimsy. It's sort of like it's like if Studio Ghibli made a superhero movie. There's so much charm, a lot of fun. I love Kat, the main character. She's really great. There's, especially with all the DLC, there's a lot of really fun like side quests you can do. I just really like Gravity Rush. Next is Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 is elevated by not even its main villain, a side villain called Voss, who they realized he had something special here and really propelled him to the top of the marketing. Far Cry 3 is a lot of fun. It's not Skyrim with guns, as that one person called it. He's cool with it. He jokes about it even to this day. But yeah, Far Cry 3 is a really good time. I prefer the DLC for that, which I'll talk about later. Dishonored. Dishonored has a lot going for it. Has a really interesting narrative, really great world design, a really great level design. But that first half of that game is so freaking good. We also did a game club of that if you want to check that out. Next is Mark of the Ninja. Mark of the Ninja is super underrated. It's a really great indie game by Clay. Has really good style. It's a puzzle platformer stealth game where he plays a ninja, and it's really cool. Next is Game Dev Tycoon. There was a little bit of controversy of if it ripped off another game called Game Dev Story, but I didn't play Game Dev Story. I played Game Dev Tycoon. It's a very simplified look at game development, but it's just a really relaxing and cozy game. And my last honorable mention for 2012 is The Walking Dead Season 1. So The Walking Dead, at least that first season, is really strong and hides a lot of like the sort of illusion of choice stuff that would plague Telltale games. The story of Lee and Clementine is very beautifully done, and the ending of that game left me broken in a pool of my own tears. So at least there's that. Now for the top 3 of 2012. Number 3 is a game that I played to completion, I believe 4 times now, and once for this show on a game club. Sleeping Dogs. I love Sleeping Dogs. It's a really sleek, open world game with a surprisingly compelling story. Really fun melee combat mechanics. A very charming main character. I love Sleeping Dogs. I played that game 4 times. You can hear me gush about it for 3 parts on this show. Number 2 is Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3 is a game that has only gotten better with time because of the DLC and the expectation of what we can think that game is. Everyone had such ballooned expectations for including myself, of what Mass Effect 3 could be. And some of us, including me, ended up slightly disappointed, especially with that ending. But they went back and fixed the ending. They went back and added DLC that gives it more context. And as it stands now, Mass Effect 3 is a fantastic ending to the Mass Effect trilogy. And my number 1 game of 2012 is a strategy game, XCOM Enemy Unknown. This is a tough-as-nails strategy game where every one of your decisions matters. I had a lot of fun customizing all my troops to be characters from like comic books and people in my real life who I was attached to, and movie characters that I liked, throwing them in a blender and just making the squad of just insane people to go out and fight these aliens. The game is super tense and relies heavily on your sort of emergent story and the story you craft with your team that you make, seeing them rise up the ranks, and with the permadeath, it makes losing one of your top guys the most devastating experience you can imagine. So that's why XCOM is my number 1 game of 2012. So 2013, I'm going to fly through all of these honorable mentions here because there are a lot of them. This is approaching the end of the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 generation. There's a lot of good indie games that came around this time. So basically every third-party developer is putting all their games out there before the end of the generation. And we're getting some really heavy hitters here. Starting with not one of those heavy hitters. Here's a fun indie game that I like to bring to parties around this time. Dive Kick. So, in the first part of this discussion, I talked about how Bushido Blade was a high-risk, high-reward game in which one hit could kill you. This is kind of a spiritual successor to that, but more in a 2D fighting game format. You can only jump, and you can kick after a jump. And that's it. Land a kick, and you win the round. And it's a lot of fun. It captures the joy of what makes fighting games really good, and that's the pick-up-and-play thing. Next is Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. This is the best Far Cry game. I talked about how Far Cry 3 was great, but Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon is a lot of fun. It is a smaller, more compact version of Far Cry, but because of that, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a lot of fun. Michael Biehn does the voice for this, and just a lot of good references to like 80s action movies and the 80s science fiction aesthetic. Next is Papers, Please. Papers, Please is a really compelling, really dark indie game in which you manage a border crossing. On paper, whenever I try to pitch someone this game, they're always like, that sounds like the most boring thing ever. But I'm like, yeah, you're managing a border crossing, but also like it's the most like intense moment-to-moment storytelling type of game you can get, in that it is very reliant on your moment-to-moment decisions of, do I let this person across, do I not? Sure, they're not following all the rules, but also they have a really compelling story that makes you want to help them out in this time of need. Next is Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Blacklist. This is the last Splinter Cell game? Yeah, this is the last Splinter Cell game, but it goes out on a pretty good bang here. Sure, you don't have Michael Ironside as Sam Fisher, but you got here a really interesting game with a lot of like quick self-contained missions that all feed a larger story. Next is Batman Arkham Origins. Batman Arkham Origins I remember liking okay. It was my least favorite of the Arkham games for a long time. I have a feeling that will change if I go back and play it. I think I might like it better than Asylum, but I'll have to go back and see and play that. We marked that down as a possible game to play just because it's like the black sheep of this series. Injustice Gods Among Us. I was very much looking forward to this game when I first heard about it. I got a GameStop tip me off to it one time. I went, wait, what? I didn't hear about this? A DC fighting game from the makers of Mortal Kombat? Didn't they try it before with MK vs. DC and it wasn't that good? Turns out Injustice is great. Has a really fun story mode that is elevated by a fantastic tie-in comic book. That Injustice comic series is so freaking good. Better than it has any right to be. Tomb Raider 2013, a reboot of Tomb Raider with some pepperings of Uncharted in there with a little bit of Metroidvania. It's an all-around fantastic video game. Grand Theft Auto 5 is an honorable mention here. Grand Theft Auto 5 was a game I picked up on release and played so much when that game first came out. I didn't want to do anything up except play Grand Theft Auto 5. Just immerse myself in that story mode. The Wolf Among Us, we played that for the show. You can hear all mine and John's thoughts on that game here. Wolf Among Us is a really great game. One of the best, probably my personal favorite Telltale adventure game. Next is a game that pains me to put as an honorable mention. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. This game rules. This is an if you know, you know type of game, but yeah, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is freaking awesome. Now for my top 3 of 2013. This list has shuffled in the years because any other games on this list, Grand Theft Auto 5 was originally a lot higher for me when it came out. I originally thought that was one of my favorite games of all time, but now it doesn't even cross the top 3 of 2013 for me. So, number 3 here, my favorite open world game for 2013, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. This is one of 2 Assassin's Creed games I finished, but something about Black Flag is just freaking awesome. I love the pirate aesthetic. I love collecting sea shanties. I love elements of Edward Kenway's story before it ties into the stupid Assassin's Creed plotline. Yeah. Assassin's Creed Black Flag is just a big open world pirate game where you can just ignore the story and just be a pirate is a lot of fun. I really like Assassin's Creed 4. Next is BioShock Infinite, my second game of 2013, and a game I'm actually terrified to go back to because I'm really afraid I won't like it as much. Everybody who has gone back to BioShock Infinite in the past couple years that I know of has talked more down on BioShock Infinite, and I don't know if I want to go back to that because in my mind, BioShock is still a brilliant story about Booker and Elizabeth going through different alternate dimensions to try to free her from an abusive relationship with her father. I thought the city of Columbia was extremely compelling. It's really beautiful to look at. I still get tears in my eyes thinking about the ending of this game whenever the Beach Boys' God Only Knows is playing. I don't want to lose that experience by playing a game again that I have a feeling I'll like less upon revisiting. But in my mind, BioShock Infinite is still one of my favorite first-person shooters and my second favorite game of 2013. Number one's a cliche. It's The Last of Us. The Last of Us does the traveling with a companion and protecting him storyline better than BioShock Infinite does. Also, the world, the writing, the characters. It's The Last of Us. Everyone knows how good The Last of Us is. It's a cliche at this point. It's a boring answer, but it's probably the best answer for 2013. The Last of Us. I'm so happy that that story was able to be translated so well to a television show format. And I hope that the Last of Us television show, for people who don't play games or have only played games like the arcade, like Pac-Man, I hope they can look at the Last of Us show, here is based on a video game, and from the outside looking in, be like, wow, video games have gotten far with their storytelling. We've had this conversation 10 years ago, but I would like to think that for the average television show audience, that conversation is happening now for them, realizing that video games as a medium of storytelling has come very far from Pac-Man. I know that's a dumb thing to say, but for people who don't play video games, that's like their frame of reference to what a video game is. So now on to 2014. 2014 is a relatively weak year. Some really good bangers here, but it's a very weird year. This is a very transitional time between the end of the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 and the start of the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, which had an extremely rocky launch. If you thought the PlayStation 3 had a rocky launch, the Xbox One was a nightmare. Starting with a couple of Xbox One games here, some honorable mentions for 2014. Sunset Overdrive. Sunset Overdrive is... There's a lot of foundations to like the Insomniac Spider-Man game here. It's just a big, dumb, pop-punk acid trip. It's a lot of fun. I love Sunset Overdrive. Titanfall. Titanfall is really freaking good. As an online-only multiplayer shooter, it combines like the Twitch-style Call of Duty gameplay, but with giant robots, and it's freaking awesome. Titanfall was a game I was like, you know what, it's $5, I'll play it. Why not? Why not? But then it turns out that what was there was really freaking good. Next for 2014, we have Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation, I talked about it a lot in the show here about how this is a game that I wish was streamlined to be a bit tighter because this is a very long game, but Alien Isolation in its moment-to-moment gameplay is so freaking good. It captures the aesthetic of the first movie, especially the 1970s sci-fi tech, and has a compelling story, and really some really good plot twists that tie back to the original movie. It's really good. Next is Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of Mordor's claim to fame is that Nemesis system, and the game itself is also, that surrounds that system, is also like a really good mix of like Assassin's Creed and Arkham combat. Even as someone who doesn't like The Lord of the Rings that much, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is still a really good game. Next is Wolfenstein: The New Order, the most recent game club we did for the show, so I'll spare any conversation and put that there. Really great foundation for revisiting the world of Wolfenstein that would set the stage for a really awesome game to come. Now for my top 3 of 2014, Destiny. This might be cheating because Destiny didn't become the game I wanted to play until 2015, but I put way too much time into Destiny, and Destiny 2 for that matter. Yeah. Destiny. I don't want to talk too much about Destiny because I feel like I gave Destiny too much of my life already, but I played a lot of Destiny, so that's why it's number 3 on this list. Number 2 is kind of a demo, Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. So this is the prologue to a game that would come out next year, a part of one of my favorite series of all time. This 2-hour-long game is so freaking good. What we have here is basically an open military base with so many moving parts, so many mechanics that you think once you play the full Metal Gear Solid 5, you're like, it's going to be this all the time. Every base is going to be like this. And not really. We have Big Boss being Big Boss. We have the foundations of our villain Skullface. We have a really cool long tracking shot of Skullface riding the Jeep around the base. We discovered that there's the XOF unit, an anti-Fox unit, basically the Syndicate from the Mission Impossible series. We get a lot of foundation here for a game that is not going to be anywhere near as good as the promise of this game sets it up to be. I'm going to make a lot of people mad, but the best part of Metal Gear Solid 5 is Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, and that's why it's number 2 for 2014. And my favorite game of 2014, Bayonetta 2. Now, I didn't play Bayonetta 2 until it got its Switch port, but what we have here is a really tight 10-hour, balls-to-the-wall action game that does not let up, does not slow down, does not stop for that entire 10-hour experience. The bosses are larger than life, the weapons combinations that you can do are freaking great. Bayonetta 2 is a freaking awesome game, and that's why it's the best game of 2014. 2015 was finally the year I upgraded to an Xbox One from my Xbox 360, so I was finally able to play games that I couldn't at the time. So that's why 2014 was pretty light, because I would have to go back to those games, but 2015 being a strong year, as we'll discuss, there was not a lot of incentive to go backwards. There's a reason 2015 was the year I waited to finally dip my toe into this generation. Starting with an indie game, Hand of Fate. Hand of Fate's really cool because it combines like a roguelike dice game. If you played like Inscription, it's kind of like that, but with like Arkham City combat. Really interesting combo. I feel bad that they made a sequel, this developer, and then just like disappeared and closed down as a result. It's really sad, but the games they made were really good. Crypt of the Necrodancer is a really great concept, but a really difficult game. I really like Crypt of the Necrodancer, but I don't think that game likes me. It's a roguelike, but all your movements and attacks are done based on the beat of the music. So as a result, the music's really good. Another indie game here, Rebel Galaxy. This is a space trucking game where you travel to different sections of a solar system and deliver goods to different space stations. It's basically, if you played Big Mother Truckers or like American Truck Simulator, it's kind of like that, but in space. It's really fun. Has like Assassin's Creed style boat combat too. This is a very indie game heavy 2015. I didn't realize this. 2015's next honorable mention is The Beginner's Guide. The less you know about The Beginner's Guide, the better, but this game is about an hour long. You can finish it in one sitting. I'm not going to tell you a thing about it, but if you are interested, go play The Beginner's Guide. Next is Blood Bowl 2. This is my introduction into the Warhammer universe. It is... XCOM football is the most aggressive way to state that. I made a team with the Chaos Legion, who are a bunch of goat people, so I named them goat puns, like John Ba Yaga is one of my guys. Next is Mortal Kombat X. The sequel to Mortal Kombat 9, obviously, but in that universe that Mortal Kombat 9 helps mold, I really liked what they quote-unquote combat kids. I like the emphasis on new characters a lot. I like the combat system here, but the single-player offerings in this are very weak. You have a single-player mode and like timed rotating towers. I just couldn't find a reason here to keep playing more than just the story and a few matches. Next is Axiom Verge. Another indie game here that is all about just ripping off the original Metroid. That's really regressive, but it does a really great job at that. It's really cool, has a really great vibe, really great music, some tough as nails bosses. Axiom Verge is a lot of fun. I recommend, if you're a fan of Metroid, check it out. Next is Batman Arkham Knight. A lot of people don't like the emphasis on the Batmobile here. I think it's fine. It does overstay its welcome. Some weak boss fights, but also some really good boss fights here. Really compelling story. A lot of good psychological Batman stuff. A lot of good stuff involving like the Bat family here. It's a mixed bag of a game. It's the most varying quality of the Batman series, but that being said, I did 100% this game. I did find it compelling enough to keep playing. Arkham Knight's a really good game. It's not top 3 good, but it's still good. And a game I put way too much time in, Rocket League. Rocket League is a lot of fun. It's kind of fell off the face of the planet now. I think Rocket League could make a resurgence in the public eye again, either with like a sequel or just like a revamp. It is such a simple concept, is remote-controlled cars playing soccer, and it's a lot of fun. Now for my top 3 of 2015. Number 3 is Undertale. Undertale is a game I didn't play until this show now 2 years ago. And I was shocked how much I loved Undertale. I was shocked how emotionally invested I got into it and cared about it. I was kind of timid to check it out because of the meme culture around this game and such the prevalency it had online a few years ago, but playing it in full, giving it its due time, Undertale is a fantastic game. And I love the story, I love the characters, I love the humor, and I love the music. So much ties together into Undertale to make it the top 3 game of 2015. Number 2 is Life is Strange. Life is Strange is the best of the Telltale mold, I believe, especially after playing The Wolf Among Us, which is my other favorite game in the genre. Life is Strange has an interesting time travel mechanic. I love Max and Chloe as lead characters. I love their story. I love the tying a time mechanic in with the narrative adventure gives more gravity and more weight to every encounter and situation, and it kind of solves the problem a lot of these games have of, I didn't mean to make that choice, that's a weird choice. Now you can just rewind and fix it as a part of the game. You can calculate every single scenario and try to pick a path that you think is best. I really, really like this game. It's one of our top games for the show for a reason. It holds up especially good. Life is Strange is incredible. But it probably would be number 1 if it wasn't for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, the conversation around it is very similar to the conversation that's happening with Baldur's Gate 3 now. Here's a big, epic story with a lot of characters, some really fun combat, and just decisions that are not defined by morally good or morally bad. It's just making the most of a bad situation for each of these stories. Witcher 3 also has some incredible DLC. Is a long game on its own with a very satisfying ending, a really catch-22 romance where you want to go for, you love both of those characters, but you have to pick one by the end of the game of who Geralt is going to choose for his romantic life partner, and if any of those things faltered, the other parts of the game are so good to hold it up, because that's just how good The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is. If the combat was kind of weak, the story and the characters would be enough to drive it. If the story was relatively weak, the characters would drive that story and make it more compelling, and the combat is still a lot of fun. So it's a very strong game in all aspects that help make each other part of that game even stronger, which is why Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is my favorite game of 2015. 2016 is a banger year, filled with a few good games, but the fact that all of these games on my honorable mentions and the top 3 could probably be shuffled around because it's such a strong year. With the exception of like the bottom tier of the honorable mentions, but we'll get to those right away. Starting with Final Fantasy 15. This is the first Final Fantasy game I beat. I really like the characters. I like the combat. The story is not bonkers enough to carry the fact that it doesn't make a lot of sense or that is pretty underdeveloped by itself, but I like the characters enough to where I wanted to see that game through. I wanted to see Noctis, Prompto, Ignis, and Gladio. I haven't played this game since around it came out, and I can still remember all those characters' names, all their personalities. Like, Prompto really likes photos. Ignis really likes cooking. And the fact that this game has, like, some really well-rendered food still sticks with me to this day more than it probably should. My recipe folder on my Google Chrome is called I've Come Up With a New Recipe, because the way Ignis sells it. Final Fantasy 15 is really good. I really want to play 16. Overwatch is next. Overwatch is, well, you know what Overwatch is. Talk about a game that had the world and then lost it, but at the time, Overwatch was a lot of fun, showed a lot of promise, had a lot of heart, had a lot of fun cosmetic items that just made you want to keep playing to get that next loot box to see if you could unlock something really cool for your character. Next we have XCOM 2. XCOM 2 is like the hardest tactics game I've ever played. I could not beat this game on easy mode. This game just continuously kicks my ass over and over and over again, and then laughs at me for it. But the character customization stuff is top-notch here, allowing you to even write backstories for each of your squad mates. The base building is more fully realized. This is all around probably a better game than XCOM Enemy Unknown, but it's a much harder, much more demanding game. Almost every mission has like a time limit or a turn limit now, which makes it really tough. I'm told the War of the Chosen DLC makes this a much better game, but I haven't played that DLC. There's too many other games to play for me to go back to XCOM 2, but I really liked what I played. Deus Ex Mankind Divided is the next honorable mention here. This game was kind of a disappointment, but that being said, it's still a Deus Ex game. It's still a sequel to one of my favorite games with Human Evolution, but Deus Ex Mankind Divided is what... The main problem here is that it feels incomplete. There's one boss fight, then it ends on a cliffhanger. It feels like half a game here, which I think leads to disappointment. If what I played was just the first half of a greater narrative, I'd be much more positive on this game. It just feels incomplete. Much like a missing game from 2015 kind of feels incomplete in the same way. Metal Gear Solid 5. Next is Super Hot. Super Hot, I feel bad as an honorable mention here because Super Hot rules. It is a first-person shooter where time only moves while you move. So you're in an elevator with a bunch of dudes, and you got to figure out how to beat all the guys to survive and be the last one standing while moving in slow motion. It's basically Matrix John Wick simulator, but it's a lot of fun. Combining like a puzzle game with a first-person high-octane action shooter is really cool. Uncharted 4 Thief's End is the next honorable mention here. A great story, great combat mechanics, even though some encounters do go back to Uncharted 1 level of frustrating. There's a grappling hook here, but the story is the main selling point, and the story is freaking great. I really love Uncharted 4 Thief's End. They can leave that series alone for a while after this, especially after like the DLC campaign too. Just, I love the way this series wrapped up. I want to see something different for the next Uncharted, rather than going back to Drake. Doom 2016 is the last honorable mention here. It pains me that this game is only an honorable mention because I love it so much. A fantastic soundtrack by Mick Gordon. Some really cool tongue-in-cheek humor here. Fantastic boss fights. Great levels. fun secrets. The fact that you can uncover hidden levels of the original Doom here is great. Doom 2016 is heavy metal awesomeness. Now for my top 3 of 2016. Number 3 is Fury. Fury is a indie game done by a group called The Game Bakers, and it is a boss rush bullet hell action game with an electronica soundtrack. And that's really all it is, but also all it needs to be, because every one of those elements of Fury, the bullet hell, the hack and slash, the soundtrack, the aesthetic, are all freaking awesome. Fury, F-U-R-I, really great game, and why it's my top 3 of 2016. Number 2 is Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 takes what Titanfall did, but does every single thing better, with the exception of sort of like the map design. But then they brought in all the maps from Titanfall 1, so you know what? It's okay now, because now we have all the good maps, but also a really interesting and better than it needs to be single-player mode with some really emotional moments, some really freaking awesome levels, including a time travel mechanic. Titanfall 2 is the entire package of what I want from a first-person shooter like this. Customizable classes in multiplayer, a really fun and compelling single-player mode, a lot of really fun multiplayer modes. Just Titanfall 2 does everything right. It's so freaking good. And number 1 is Hitman 2016, the foundation for the World of Assassin trilogy. But what Hitman gets right is its style, its blend of humor, the levels. The levels are basically mini open world puzzle boxes that it's almost sort of like Groundhog Day in that you can map out how things go in a level based on who talks to who at what time, what actions characters take at different times to like change the map, as well as where everybody is at a given time. This is the ultimate, like, playset in a stealth game. Each of the missions are really cool. I love the James Bond-esque breakdown of who the villains are before you go in. There's a lot of James Bond cues in here, which is why I believe they were chosen. IO is currently making the next 007 game, which I think is really cool. It's a really good fit here because Hitman is so good. That is the best game of 2016 in my mind. 2017 is without a doubt one of the best years ever in video games. And as we talk about the honorable mentions, we're going to see why. Just a huge collection of games from America and Japan that are both really freaking awesome. We have Nintendo's resurgence with the Switch. We have Japan finally coming back from the dark ages of like the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 generation. We have the resurgence of some series that have been dormant or have kind of lost their way over time. So let's get into 2017. The first game is Destiny 2. A sort of soft sequel to the original Destiny, and it's been Destiny 2 ever since. The highs of Destiny 2 are much higher than Destiny, and the lows are much lower than Destiny 1. It's just an inconsistent like mess that they've never got around to being perfect, which is why I can't make it my top 3 of 2017. That being said, I still put way too much time into this game, and I'll still look back fondly on Destiny 2, probably because I got off the ship before the expansions really started to be hit and miss. Next is Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Talk about a game on paper that should not have worked. Mario teaming up with the Rabbids from Rayman and doing an XCOM style tactics game where Mario shoots a gun. That being said, the writing is a lot of fun. This game kind of overstays its welcome by being way longer than it probably should be, but I still had a lot of fun. Making Luigi a sniper and then him doing death glares is inspired. Next game for 2017 is Yakuza 0. Yakuza 0 is a great game, another great game that I think goes on for way too long. The story here is a kind of dual narrative with Kiryu and Goro Majima. Majima has one of the best character introductions I've ever seen in an entire game of him running that nightclub. I won't spoil it for you here, but it's a fantastic intro to a character. Yakuza 0 is a great game that got me into the Yakuza series, but so far this is the only one I finished in that series. Next is Super Mario Odyssey. The king of 3D platformers returns with a fantastic adventure. I love using Cappy. I 100% this game. I got every single moon in this game, knocked out every single challenge. This was a lot of fun to do, and it's one of those games where 50 hours for a platformer seems like a lot, but the worlds and the challenges are so well done that I just had to keep playing until I saw everything. Next is Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, probably the most insane video game I've ever played story-wise. I don't want to talk too much about that here because we are going to play that next year for the show. I'm going to bring John back, and we are going to play Wolfenstein 2 because I have to hear him talk about the story moments in that thing. Next is Puyo Puyo Tetris. This is my favorite Tetris game. It combines Puyo Puyo, if you ever played Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, you played a version of Puyo Puyo. Puyo Puyo is match the little beads together, match 4 of the same color, and they pop. And Tetris is just Tetris. Combine the two, and you have a really fun, really challenging, really hectic, and chaotic puzzle game. You can play Puyo Puyo and Tetris on the same board. You can play one game of Puyo Puyo and one game of Tetris, and during the match, it'll swap. It's just a good, versus puzzle game, which is a lot of fun. Next is Battleship Brigade. This is an indie game with a lot of style that is a match 3 game combined with Iron Chef, where you're going out, you get a secret ingredient, which is today's secret ingredient is dragon. So you gotta go to a 2D beat 'em up dungeon crawler thing. Well, it's not really a dungeon crawler. There's a little sort of 2D platformer dungeon that you run through, and then you fight the thing with the secret ingredient. It could be plants, it could be a dragon, and you bring the ingredients back, and all of the meals that you have to make have to include the secret ingredient in order to get a high score on. It's a lot of fun. It's a very unique game. It's also really charming. I love the characters in that game a lot. Next is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. RE7 is a very intense game. We played that for the show, and it was difficult to get through in the sense that it was a game you have to force yourself to keep going on because it is just so oppressive and so draining to play. But as a horror game, that's exactly what you want. It reinvents the series and does a fantastic job at it. That Resident Evil 7 is an incredible achievement on a series bouncing back. Keeping with the honorable mentions here because there's so many for this year, Fire Pro Wrestling World is a game I put a lot of time in because it took me back to the wrestling games I played as a kid, in that there's a lot of customization options. I couldn't wrap my head around the character creators, but the character creation website, people have made some astonishing things with. You can make your own wrestling company. The matches that I've actually played in this game is relatively few. I've mostly just been watching create a character matches and had a lot of fun with that and managing those matches and seeing how they play out. This game recently got replaced for me as my go-to wrestling game because I got WWE 2K23, and that is also a create a character nightmare if you want it to be, but it's also a lot of fun. But the time I had with Fire Pro Wrestling World got me back into wrestling games in a way I didn't expect. And the final honorable mention for 2017 is Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. This might be my favorite Uncharted game. I love Chloe and Nadine's journey here. It is a very short, tight story with some open world environments, some very interesting puzzles, some really cool side puzzles and dungeons to do here. Is a really fun game. It's nice to see an Uncharted game take more of an emphasis on puzzle solving than in combat again, and I hope that the future of the series kind of leans that direction. This feels like a successor, more than the Uncharted games, to the original Tomb Raider games. So much so that if I took this game back in time and showed people it, I have a feeling I could convince them that this was a Tomb Raider game and that Chloe was actually Lara Croft. So let's finish out this insane year with my top 3 of 2017. Number 3 is Injustice 2. Injustice 2 is an incredibly beautiful looking fighting game. At the time of its release, I would say it's probably the best looking fighting game in terms of like graphical fidelity. The storyline was my favorite DC story that they've done in any medium at the time, especially like seeing something like Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice the year before and then playing this. It is a massive leap in quality for Injustice 2 and being like, this is how like the movie should have done it. It made me so mad that the game story was a million times better than the DC universe we were getting in movie form. People hate the gear system. I really liked the gear system because the fact that you could like customize characters' armor and their outfits to have different buffs. So I could make a Batman really good at defense, and I could have a Batman really good at attack or his special moves, and I could customize the color of the armor to look a certain way that meets the gear pieces I have on. I like the way all that worked. The multiverse mode was the smartest thing I've seen like single player fighting games ever. Just an ever shifting range of modes that constantly change like every single day or every few hours or so, that were based around getting gear for a certain character. So whenever like Green Arrow or Black Canary or Harley Quinn or Batman or The Flash or like Aquaman came up, I would do those multiverse modes to get gear for the characters that I made. It incentivizes you for picking a main and to get really good at that character so you would get the armor for. It was so smart, so well done. I loved Injustice 2. Next we have one of the defining games of 2017 and of Nintendo of the last like 10 years. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is my second favorite game of 2017. Everyone who has played it knows what makes this game special, or at least knows why the people who love it love it. This open sense of like exploration and being able to go anywhere in any order and doing anything you want was at the time very novel, still very grand. I like the sparse soundtrack. I love the characterization of Zelda in this story here. And the best thing about Breath of the Wild was how all of the items in the environment, how they sort of all played off each other. The way like lightning could add fire to the environment and you could use that fire to use a wind gust to propel yourself forward. The layers of mechanics on top of mechanics on top of mechanics made the game really special. Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games of all time, which can only mean that my favorite game of 2017 is another one of my favorite games of all time, and it is. My favorite game of 2017, and probably my second or third favorite game of all time, is Nier Automata. Nier Automata is an insane story that is combined and elevated by in-depth philosophy, but also insane hack and slash combat and bullet hell stuff. It's everything I love about video games rolled up into one. Insane story, fun gameplay change-ups, story change-ups in a lot of interesting ways. The fact that you played this game multiple times through different perspectives, and the story changes as a result of who you're playing as and the different perspectives that you're seeing. Nier Automata is an amazing video game. And to kind of lay out the elevator pitch for the story, it is set thousands upon thousands of years into the future. Aliens have invaded and sent their army of robots to take over the Earth. So humans fled to the moon where they made androids to fight the robots. And it's thousands of years after that where you play as a handful of androids who are in the war, the ongoing war, the thousands upon thousands of year war to take Earth back from the aliens. And sort of the ramifications of that, sort of the fact that the androids were made in humans' image, So the humans are like the gods of the androids. But the robots who have no like fear or emotion begin to have like fear and emotion, begin to evolve. And what does that mean? Are they no longer like slaves of the aliens that they once served? Now that they start having an urge to find meaning and purpose, and when they start to have the urge to find meaning and purpose, they resort to different like philosophical arguments. There's references to Sartre, to Christianity, to like not the nihilism of Nietzsche. It's all here. It's so well done. I could talk about this game forever. It's super compelling. Also, the soundtrack. The fact that each song has like 10 different versions depending on like how the world state is, or if you're hacking, it'll seamlessly transition to like an 8-bit version of the soundtrack, and then when you pop back out, it's like the standard battle theme again. It is so impressive. This game is so emotional. I could not stop playing this game. And I really want to go back and play this game again, because I haven't since I played this game back in 2019 for the first time. The Achilles heel of this game is that it does take a long time before you start to realize how special this game is, so the on-ramp is quite steep, but I tell you, if you haven't played this game, to stick with it until you get to the end of the first playthrough, which is a big task to ask to beat the game before you might start to like it, but what you'll find here is super unique and super special if you give it the time to allow it to take you over. So that's why Nier Automata is my favorite game of 2017 and one of my favorite games of all time. 2018 is a wild card year with a lot of stuff and a lot of different genres that are all super great. Let's get the ground running. Celeste is an honorable mention here. Really excellent 2D platformer that I didn't beat, but has a fantastic soundtrack and really good story and like a really compelling like allegory. Tetris Effect is Tetris, but with really trippy visuals and like a great soundtrack. Wreckfest is a callback to games that I talked about earlier in this episode, like Flat Out 2. Just a good all-around destruction derby game where you can ride lawnmowers. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu is an honorable mention. This is a remake of Pokemon Yellow. Pikachu is the version I played, but there's also a version with Eevee. This is the first Pokemon game that does away with like random battles, but it streamlines the original Pokemon game in that you're actually not doing battles with wild Pokemon, you're just doing like a catching minigame. That being said, this was the perfect Pokemon game to get me back into Pokemon. Next we have Soul Calibur 6. Soul Calibur 6 is a game I spent too much time in the character creator and not enough time doing fights. I know I would like more of Soul Calibur 6 if I played of it, but unfortunately I was playing another fighting game that came out in 2018. Dragon Ball FighterZ. Dragon Ball FighterZ friggin' rules. This captures the aesthetic of the anime series and a lot of what makes those fights so kinetic and interesting in the show is finally translated to a video game format, including recreations of those scenes in super high fidelity. Next is Hitman 2. Hitman 2 does everything great that the first game did, and is more of that. I think the maps are better on Hitman 1, but Hitman 2 has some really good highlights, especially with the racetrack level and the final level with the where you're just surrounded by the richest people in the world that have a cult, and so you don't feel bad about collateral damage on that level. It's really great. You can burn all their money, which is great. Return of the Obra Dinn is another honorable mention here. Return of the Obra Dinn is a very unique game in the fact that you're solving a mystery through time travel. It's like Papers, Please, and that takes like a relatively like mundane job, like insurance investigator, but turns that into a really interesting game. Combine that with some like old sea lore like the Kraken and some really great mystery stuff with just a great aesthetic and just an all-around like fantastic game. Into the Breach is another indie honorable mention here. Into the Breach is one of my favorite roguelikes in that I don't think the on-ramp is too difficult. You're sending mechs back in time to save the world from destruction. So it's like a time loop game where you're constantly going back in time to save the world. And it's mostly about surviving the encounters for as long as possible. There's different missions, and you're going to different islands to help power the planet and to prepare them for the final conflict at the end. It's a lot of fun. The last honorable mention here is Marvel's Spider-Man. This was a game I wanted to jump onto the PlayStation 5 for, and it was worth it. I can't wait for Spider-Man 2. Marvel's Spider-Man is just the perfect amalgamation of everything great about classic Spider-Man stories. And it gives you, much like how the Arkham cities gave you a greatest hits of the Batman mythos, this is that for the Spider-Man mythos. Gives you sort of a mix of the stuff that you know from Spider-Man, but also mixing in some new and fresh and interesting ideas into the story. It's the smartest way to do a Spider-Man game. It's a lot of fun. Now for the top 3. Number 3 is The Messenger. One of my favorite Metroidvania games because of its unique style, very compelling humor. I love The Messenger a lot. It's hard to talk too deep about it because it's everything great about indie games in that it evokes music from the time and but with a really great sense of humor. But it has to be played to really appreciate how much they twist on those ideas and make something really compelling out of it. Number 2 for 2018 is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This was the first time I got really into a Smash Bros. Game since Brawl. And my favorite Smash Bros. Game, maybe of all time, or maybe since Melee. The list of characters here is the most insane in any fighting game ever. The licensing that had to be pulled in order to make this work. I really liked Life Flight, I believe is what it's called, which is the story mode that takes about 30 hours if you want to fully complete the thing. But there's a really strong emphasis on single player content with the spirit stuff, in that there is a series of just single player battles that the game will have you do, and there's probably thousands of them that you can do. It does get kind of repetitive in single player, but that being said, I did play 100 hours of it, and probably 90 of it is single player compared to the online stuff. The online's relatively weak, but hey. Speaking of a game but with weak online that I don't care about that much because I had a blast playing this game, Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World is my favorite game of 2018. It's my first Monster Hunter game, and the loop of it is you hunt monsters to craft weapons and armor so that you can hunt even bigger monsters. Monster Hunter World is fantastic. I love the character creator is great. You can pick a little cat friend to help you out on adventures. The online with friends is relatively weak because for some reason they make you watch the cutscene before you can do anything. There's unskippable cutscenes in this game, and the fact that you're on online, if you've already seen the cutscene, there's a discrepancy with people who didn't. It's really confusing. I can't even wrap my head around to remember how broken it was. But what's really cool is the flare system. So if I'm having trouble with the monster, I can shoot out a flare, and it will send out an alert to people who have beaten that monster before, and they can come in and help me. And they get a share of rewards as a result. And what's really cool is if you can yourself answer those flares, which you'll want to do because by grinding the same monsters over and over, you can make some really cool upgrades to your weapons and armor, which is essential to beating more of the game. Monster Hunter World is a fantastic game. I am now fully on board into the Monster Hunter series and want to play every single release that comes out for this thing. We're approaching the end. Just 3 more years to go. 2019 is a surprisingly banger year. I didn't realize how insane this year was until I mapped out just how many games are in it. The games here are so good. Let's get into it. First honorable mention is Pokemon Shield. Pokemon Sword and Shield specifically, but I played Shield. This was a really fun Pokemon. Like, it was great to go back to a full mainline adventure for the first time since the original games for me. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu was the on-ramp back into this series, and going to Pokemon Shield, I had a blast with it. Sure, the story wasn't super great. Sure, like, the graphics left a lot to be desired here, but as a game itself, Pokemon Shield was a lot of fun, especially finally being able to play Pokemon games with my friends who have never left the series. Going back to that and then playing them online and even beating some of them online was a lot of fun. Next honorable mention is Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds is just both like a game that can make you super calm but also give you existential horror. This is a game of... It's a time loop game where you have 26 or 29 minutes before the universe explodes. And you have to travel around this little solar system to figure out the clues on how to stop it. And this is a game I could not put down. This is a game that terrified me because I have a deep-seated fear of creatures and sea creatures that live in the deepest parts of the ocean. And there's a part of this game where you need to navigate a ship through this thing called the Dark Bramble, which is like, it looks like a briar patch, but it is populated with giant anglerfish that will come and eat your ship whole. I legit screamed. This terrified me more than almost any horror game. I wanted to sob while playing this part. I hated it so much, but getting to the end of that thing made me feel like a brave boy. Outer Wilds is great. Resident Evil 2 Remake is amazing. That's really all that needs to be said here. It takes everything great about the Resident Evil 1 remake and Resident Evil 7 and combines that with like the over-the-shoulder perspective of like Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 2 Remake is so good. The problem with it is the first half of the game of each story is set in the police station, and that police station is so good that it makes the sewer area and the Umbrella headquarters feel weak in comparison. This is a game that starts strong and ends okay in both playthroughs. But there's a lot of content here. There's a lot of extra modes that you can have. There's a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X version now that is ray tracing. It's a lot of fun. I really like Resident Evil 2 Remake. Next is Judgment. Judgment is a game that I keep telling myself I'm going to go back to. I started that earlier this year and had a great time with it. It's a fantastic murder mystery that is about sort of redemption and being around your friends and trusting people, and also is sort of an interesting take on like a police procedural or legal drama. But that being said, it's a very long story. This is a very long game, and I want to see the end of it. I want to know what happens, but going back to it is so hard, especially since I spent some time away, that trying to remember everything that happens is quite difficult. Next is Mortal Kombat 11. Mortal Kombat 11 I didn't play until a couple years after this when I got the Ultimate Edition, but Mortal Kombat 11 is great. The story mode, especially the Aftermath DLC, makes that story so good. I love the cast of characters here. I love the downloadable guest characters here with like Terminator and everything. It's sort of a weaker version of the gear system from Injustice. There's a lot more Injustice 2. Just a lot more grinding here, but it's fine. Mortal Kombat 11 is a really good game still. Next is Death Stranding. Specifically the director's cut, but I'm calling it the original release here. Death Stranding, I'm a big Kojima fan. This story doesn't make sense, and the beat for beat plot is kind of garbage, but the way all the gameplay ties into the world building is better than any other game I've ever seen try to do something like this. It is a very unique game, a very weird game. I really, really loved my time with it, despite the fact that the last 8 to 10 hours are an absolute slog of this game. But you can just live in the third chapter and just deliver packages and sort of navigating the environment, figuring out how you're going to deliver stuff in this post-apocalyptic wasteland that is filled with raiders and ghosts, exploding ghosts, mind you. It's super interesting and compelling. I really like Death Stranding. And I'm very interested to see what the sequel does. I'm hoping for something completely different. Or something that just like shifts the gameplay in some very interesting ways. Because I feel like the world here leaves some really cool ideas for what you can do. Next is Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown. This game kicked ass. The story, the gameplay, the fact that you can hold a button and watch a rocket fly into other planes is cool. This has a story about this alternate universe nations feuding, but also one has the ability to make super insane giant drone-powered death planes. It's really cool. And what that means for the future of air warfare when there's drones everywhere. It's like the movie Stealth, but good. Next is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Jedi Fallen Order is... what if we combine a Souls-like with Metroid Prime and Star Wars? You get Jedi Fallen Order. You get one of my favorite Jedi of all time with Cal Kestis. You get a really deep story that plays out in the last third of that game. Well, yeah, what holds it back from the top 3 for me is the fact that the story doesn't really... takes like a back seat until near the end of that game, but what is there is really good. I really want to play Jedi Survivor. I hope they improve on like the story aspect of that game, but what's here is really good. Now for the top 3 of 2019. Number 3, Control. This is a game we played for the show at the beginning of last year and absolutely loved it. Control has some of the best world building I've ever seen in a game with the oldest house. Some really interesting background stories. The fact that this game is super weird, super unsettling, is also rolled into like this Metroidvania where you're unlocking different parts of the facility. The combat is especially fun, being able to rip something out of the wall with like telekinesis and just throwing it at enemies. Control is really cool. It ties in Alan Wake into this world, so now I'm very excited to see where Alan Wake 2 goes with the Control storyline stuff. Next for 2019, number 2 is Super Mario Maker 2. Super Mario Maker 2 is a game I had a lot of fun with for a couple years, going off and on, going back to this, designing so levels, making an entire world of levels for my friend to beat. Oh, John's that friend. John is a very big Beatles fan. I think we talked about on the show some. So I made all of the levels that I tried to tormented him with, and I named them all after Beatles songs, but with like Mario twists. I actually found the list of some of those levels right here. Here Comes the Sun, because Mario 3 has a sun that will come and kill you. I have the continuing story of Banzai Bill. I have March of the Hot Chops, Mean Mr. Monty Mole. Drive My Car, because there's a Koopa car you can drive. Looper's Garden, named after the best Beatles song, Octopus's Garden. So yeah, this is the best game that involves making your own platforming levels because it uses like the universal language of Mario. Everyone knows how a 2D Mario platformer plays, so the fact that all of the tools is something everybody is super familiar with makes for a really excellent game. Everybody understands what you're doing with the levels, and everybody understands how to make levels. And the more levels you play, the more ideas that you get, and the better your levels will get as a result. I actually won a contest at a local game store for having a really great level. I won a $25 gift card to the game store with my level called Tropical Teeter Totter Trouble, in which it's a night level where I have a bunch of like seesaw things that you have to contend with, like rising and lowering poison water to make sure you don't fall in. So it's about managing like enemy placement on it to keep the seesaw from tipping too far one way or the other. And winning a contest is why Super Mario Maker 2 was number 2. No, but It is beaten by one more Nintendo game here. Fire Emblem Three Houses. Fire Emblem Three Houses is probably my favorite strategy tactics game. This is a game that rewards replayability, has a cool New Game Plus mode that streamlines the gameplay a bit so you can get right to what makes the story different on each path. So the main story here is that you are like the son of a mercenary who is sent to this naval academy to be in charge, basically the RA for this group of students, and whatever Hogwarts house you choose is going to be your story for the rest of the game. The first half of the story plays out the same, but then gets radically different as it branches apart. But what makes this game so special is that you are always getting a sense of progression no matter what you are doing. So while there is a big story event that plays out every month, the rest of the game is sort of takes place in this military academy while you're teaching everybody. And you're going around having private lessons with your students and teaching them to be better with different things. So as a result, it's fully customizable to how you want to use your army and how you want to train them up. And they'll have different preferences. You can really push them to learn something different and they'll be better soldiers. There are so many leveling up bars in this game that you are leveling up something at any given moment and it all feels good. There's also permadeath on the battlefield you can turn on that makes you think every single encounter. I managed to beat this game without losing a single one of my students. That also helps because they do tie in a rewind mechanic into this game to help make those fights a little more forgiving. But also, if you lose a battle, you don't lose any of the experience you gain. So if you lose a soldier, it might be better to just play out the battle and then lose, so you can keep that experience, and then you can just steamroll that battle when you play it again. So that's why Fire Emblem Three Houses is my favorite game of 2019. I did math wrong. Now there's 3 years remaining. 2020. 2020 being sort of a weird year for all of us, and as a result, game releases are sort of in a weird spot this year, but also there's new consoles that came out this year that were very hard to get. So let's get into 2020. My first game is Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. This is a collection by Nintendo of a bunch of like card and board games from around the world, but the collection is so well done. The ease that it teaches you, the fact that it can teach you how to play shogi is in itself really cool, but also there's just basic card games here like War, and you can learn how to play Mahjong proper here. You can play Connect 4. There's a version of Uno here. It's just a lot of fun. My wife and I occasionally go back to play Pig's Tale, which is a lot of fun. Just an all-around great collection. It's a great playing game if you need one of those. Next is Dota Underlords. Do you guys remember the auto chess trend that popped up around this time? Dota Underlords got its full release this year, which is why it's a 2020 release, despite the fact that I probably played more of it in 2019. I don't remember a lot about auto chess because I haven't played this game since it came out, but I did play a lot of it, so that's why it's on this list. Next is Astro's Playroom, a 3D platformer that is bundled with the PlayStation 5. It is so full of whimsy. It shows off all the ins and outs of that controller. There's so much personality in such a short little game that I 100% completed in a week and had a blast with. Next is Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is Sucker Punch's game, the infamous people, and they did a 3D open world action game here with there's some sort of Souls-like elements in terms of like its dodges and parrying and sort of like its Sekiro-like balance system, but also combines elements of like the Assassin's Creed games, some full-on stealth mechanics here. Ghost of Tsushima is a really fun game. Really compelling story. Just all-around great presentation. Probably the most beautiful game I've ever played on PlayStation 5. This game just drips with so much style and aesthetic. It's so good. Next is Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. To say this is a DLC game is selling it short because it's basically a short Spider-Man adventure starring Miles Morales, which bridges the gap to Spider-Man 2 while also fleshing out this version of Miles. It's very good. What else can I say? Next is Hades. Hades is a game I'm bad at, but I keep playing anyway. Why is everyone in this game so freaking hot? This is a roguelike game with that's really fast and frantic, great weapons, great writing. The fact that I have yet to hear the same line of dialogue twice in this game speaks for how good it is. Yeah, Hades is great. Next is Persona 5 Royal, as an honorable mention here. Persona 5 Royal is a game I put way over 100 hours in because of the story. I was super invested in the story, super invested in the characters. The style of the dungeons in this game are top notch. The story is really good. I love the Phantom Thieves. I love their sort of rapport with each other. This game does go on a long time, but it does not overstay its welcome. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. I played so much of this game. I did not want to put it down. I beat this game in probably half a year because it's so long, but it was a blast playing. Next is number 3, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. This is the definitive way to play those original Tony Hawk games, those original Tony Hawk levels. The music is like a greatest hits of the first 2 Tony Hawk games, but also some new music thrown in there. It's just an all-around great playing game. Is probably to this day, even 3 years later, the best feeling extreme sports game. It is a travesty that the studio got pulled from 1 and 2 to be a support studio for Blizzard and Diablo in particular. That is... Vicarious Visions are so much better with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Those guys are wizards, and it's very sad to see them go. Number 2 is Animal Crossing New Horizons. I love New Horizons. This was a game that got my wife into playing video games again, or just like watching me. We would both play New Horizons together. Put so much time, so many hours into. It is above and beyond the game I played the most on my Switch. I really enjoyed this game, and now my wife, new Nintendo fan, is now asking me, hey, when's the next one? To which I say, oh boy, welcome to the game of Nintendo Roulette, where you will never get what you want, but you are going to be happy about it regardless. Every direct that happens now, she's like, are they going to do a new Animal Crossing or a spin-off or something with Animal Crossing? I'm like, gee, probably not, but you know what? Maybe. And my favorite game of 2020 is Final Fantasy VII Remake. I loved this story. I love the combat in this game. I love the characters. The music is so good. This is a game that fires on all cylinders on every single aspect of the game. I love the pseudo-sequel that is to the original Final Fantasy VII. I love just Aerith as a character. Cloud and Aerith's relationship in this game is so compelling, so well done. The fact that he has rapport with everybody, the fact that he has like an ongoing character arc that we're going to see play out, that if you know base Final Fantasy VII, you already know how these stories play out, but they're playing out, I believe, so much better because every single scene that was like 2 seconds in the original game is given so much more time to breathe. So much more time to go into all these characters. So much time to learn and grow with them. There's a lot of downtime in this game. Especially with like areas like the Wall Market. Where you're just going around having a date with Aerith. And it's great. I cannot wait for Rebirth. I cannot wait to jump back into this world and continue the story. Which is why Final Fantasy VII Remake is my favorite game of 2020. 2021. This is a weird year. The next 2 years are going to be weird because these were years I would go back and play a lot of games, some like retro games during this time because releases were a lot more scattershot as we like deal with the pandemic and the post-pandemic of shifting development around. 2023 is where we're at now. The reason it's one of the best years of all time is because we're finally out of that, and so games that were dormant for so long have finally gotten their due this year. But 2021 is still a good year for games. We got Hot Wheels Unleashed, probably the closest game I could get to an F-Zero until this year. Mario Party Superstars, a fantastic remake of celebration of the boards from Nintendo 64 Mario Party while still celebrating all the mini games from all the other Mario Party games. Just all around great time. Deathloop. Deathloop is a game that has so much going for it. The potential of that game when it starts out versus where it finishes makes me so disappointed, but the opening hours and the first few hours of Deathloop are so freaking high that it has to be an honorable mention here. Next is Axiom Verge 2. So Axiom Verge 2 is a spiritual successor to like the Castlevania games, just like Axiom Verge 1 was a spiritual successor to the Metroid games. Very much more emphasis on like exploration and doing boss fights in any order versus like more of the linear Metroidvania aspects of like the original Metroid and Axiom Verge as a result. So yeah, Axiom Verge 2 really good. Next is Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. I consider this a new game from Virtua Fighter 5. It's still the same stages and all that from Virtua Fighter 5, but it got a fresh online upgrade. This got a fresh new coat of paint. It got a new re-release on consoles. It is a brand new game almost that is sort of like reintroducing us to the world of Virtua Fighter before they move on with like Virtua Fighter 6. I love Virtua Fighter. I'm glad to see it back here. I'm glad to have a modern console with a Virtua Fighter game on it. Because even though I don't play them for a super long period of time, it's nice to know I can jump back into Virtua Fighter whenever I want. Next is it was underrated, but I think everybody who was cautious about this game has kind of played it now, so I think it sort of has a cult following now. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Just like the Guardians of the Galaxy are like the underdog of Marvel Comics, they were the underdogs of Marvel games in that people didn't believe that this would be a good game, and it actually turned out being a great game. It's a really fun single-player game with a lot of heart. It takes some... You could probably call this like a Mass Effect Light, in the sense that there is going back to the ship in between missions, and there is some decisions and dialogue trees going on, and it's about managing the relationships with your crew and everything. But I'm so happy that this game came out in the state that it did, and that it's a really good story with really fun gameplay, a great curated soundtrack, which you have to have for Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just a lot of fun, just a really fun game. Now for my top 3 of 2021. Number 3, Resident Evil Village. This is my favorite story of any of the Resident Evil games. Just a good, compelling, like, horror story in which it dates hundreds of years back in terms of, like, it's where its mystery begins. I like the cast of villains here. I love the emphasis of going to, like, separate areas to have, like, little mini mansions scattered about. This game has House Beneviento, which is one of the greatest horror set pieces I played in any video game. I really like where the story goes here, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with Resident Evil 9. Number 2 is Monster Hunter Rise. Whether I like this more than Monster Hunter World is basically a coin toss. It's a very different game. Monster Hunter World is all about these big, epic encounters and hunting the monster. Monster Hunter Rise, they might as well call this game Monster Fighter because there's very little hunting. You go right to the monster. That being said, I love the armor sets in this game. I love how quick the fights are because there's... The fact that this game is on Switch, you could tell that this was a very portable, focused Monster Hunter first, and that the fights and the hunts are very streamlined, very fast. You can get in and out of a hunt really, really quickly, unless you're doing one of the big hunts. You have a dog buddy, which is all about helping you get around super fast. So this game is all about making the Monster Hunter experience super fast and super, like, quick, get in, get out style hunts, which I really like too. I hope that the next Monster Hunter is more like World, and that we kind of go back and forth between like the more methodical hunting, building up to the big fights versus just having the big fight. Which I really like both of these style of Monster Hunters, but I hope we like alternate between them as we move through the series. So now my favorite game of 2021 is Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread is like the other Metroid games on speed. You fly through this game so super fast. Samus has so many different moves and abilities and everything. And so the act of moment-to-moment playing Metroid Dread is so freaking good. The environment design and the music leave a lot to be desired, but that being said, all the other pillars of this game are so strong that this is my favorite game of 2011. And now for the last year that we're going to cover, because 2023 is still ongoing and my thoughts could change. 2022 is a pretty interesting year. There's a lot of indie games this year versus main big AAA stuff, which I found really interesting. So, on with the honorable mentions. The first one here is Triangle Strategy. This would probably be a game in the top 3 if I finished it. I fell off this game because I was playing the number 2 favorite game of this year around the same time. This was a pre-order that I got around Christmas time. So when this game came out, I didn't realize I would be still super deep into the number 2 game, that I sort of fell off of Triangle Strategy, but I want to go back and play that somehow because I loved what I played and I really loved that story. And the fact that it's a strategy RPG with emphasis on like choices and where the narrative goes is super interesting. Next is Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion. Because I loved Final Fantasy VII Remake so much, the fact that they did a remake of the original Crisis Core, this is more than a remaster, this is a full-on remake, because the graphics are completely retouched and redone on top of the combat system getting reworked. The dialogue is all the same from what I understand, but the voice actors are new and in line with the Final Fantasy VII Remake voice acting team. So I consider this a remake, which is why not counting like the 2005 or 2006 Crisis Core. But anyway, this is a game that is very out there in terms of its story. I don't know if I like the story in this game, but it ends very, very strong. And the fact that they put this out there makes me think that this is all of Zack's story being a prequel to Final Fantasy VII is going to be very important for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth next year. But that being said, I still really liked what I played. Aerith is still a fantastic character. I love her and Zack's relationship here. Next is Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors was a game I was addicted to for about a month, and then I cleaned myself from. I haven't gone back to it, but I know that if I start up again, it's going to be there. Vampire Survivors is like an insane game that feels like a slot machine, in that you have 30 minutes to just walk around. You don't have any other buttons besides just like walk around. And as you kill more monsters and stuff, you'll level up and then get a new ability that auto fires whenever you walk around. So you do that for about 30 minutes, and then death comes and takes you away unless you have the power to kill death. Yeah, it's just a game that floods the screen with so much nonsense every single chance it gets. I think it's still free on phones, or at least really cheap, so I would check it out there. But just know, if you try it, you're going to be addicted. Speaking of addictions, Marvel Snap got me addicted for a few months there. Marvel Snap is a card game from, I believe they got the guys from Hearthstone to do this. Marvel Snap was, to put it shortly, an addiction for a few months there. Next, we have the final honorable mention, Immortality. Immortality is super fascinating because it is a full-motion video game that is all about solving the mystery of what happened with this actress. But there's no, like, set start or failure points in this game. So in the game, you sort of play as this film archivist who's going through all of like the dailies, or everything that was shot for 3 movies, as well as a collection of interviews that all circle around this actress. And it's all about diving into the footage, using similar imagery and clicking on things that match. Like you can click on a character or a face of an actor, and it will take you to another scene that has that actor. You can click on a lamp, and it will take you to a scene with that lamp, or maybe another lamp. So there's no clear-cut direction on how you're going to jump from scene to scene to movie, but it's about solving the mystery in your own way. And Eric was playing this game at the same time that I was, and we were talking about completely different paths of information that we led on. We played the game for a few hours at this point, and I was talking about, I think there's something going on with this one actor, and he was talking about, man, I ran into the devil. And I went, what? We're on completely different paths here. We'll talk about this once we roll credits. And there is credits in this game. There is a set point of the end of this game, but whether you want to keep going and delve more into the mystery, you can do that, or you can leave satisfied, which is what I did, because I think I found enough of the narrative to where I was, thought I had gotten everything. I might have missed a whole train of things, but I left with a sense of thinking I know what happened. So now it's time to get into my 3 favorite games of 2022. Number 3 is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Kirby and the Forgotten Land was a game I got this year because my wife wanted to play Kirby, and I wanted to play the new Zelda coming out, Tears of the Kingdom. So we got the Nintendo voucher, so I could save some money getting both of the games. And so Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a really fun co-op game. I think when it comes to Nintendo co-op games, sometimes they assume that the second player is going to be a kid, so they limit the abilities. But that being said, my wife fell in love with Bandana Waddle Dee. We played the entire game together, beginning to end. I would go back and in between some of our game sessions and play some of the bonus challenges to unlock some upgrades for Kirby. And as you upgrade your abilities, Waddle Dee's little spear gets stronger. So where my wife longer likes Kirby as much, now she's all in on Waddle Dee, going, Waddle Dee's the real hero. He's the backbone of Kirby. We just had a lot of fun playing this game together. Number 2 is, I think, the highest a game placed that I did not finish. Number 2 is Elden Ring. I loved my time with Elden Ring. This is it's like if you took everything that made Breath of the Wild compelling, but then added that with everything that made Dark Souls compelling, and combined the two in a chocolate and peanut butter type situation, where you get sort of the dark world design of a Dark Souls with the openness of a Breath of the Wild, and the two merged beautifully. I don't know if I'll ever beat this game, but the 60 hours into that adventure that I put in was a fantastic time, where I just wanted to chip away and explore that world and uncover secrets. Elden Ring is an absolute blast of a game. It's so well done, and the guys at From Software should be commended for the incredible work that they did. And my favorite game of 2022 is a game I put so much time in. I 100%ed this game, and I loved every second of it. This game is Neon White. Neon White is a fast-paced, arcadey action game in the vein of the Dreamcast or GameCube era of video games. That this is a speedrunning game where you're grabbing cards in the environment and using those abilities to figure out how to defeat all the enemies in the level and get to the end as fast as possible. Sure, the story and the writing, I don't find that great. This is from the Donut County guys. I love Donut County. I feel really bad that I didn't put Donut County as an honorable mention, so whatever year Donut County came in, that's now an official honorable mention. But Neon White is so good, and I made Tanner so mad at this thing because I made a point to beat every single one of his times. And occasionally I'll go back and check this game to make sure, hey, am I still ahead of all his times, just to make him mad? And it is fun every single time. And that is it. That is every year since 1990 of my favorite video games of all time from every single year. This was a sort of daunting task that I had a lot of fun doing. So, you might be asking, what's next for State of the Save, now that you've chronicled every single one of your favorite games? Well, one game that popped up a lot in this list is F-Zero. There's a new F-Zero game out. I've been asking for F-Zero back for a long time. Tanner, friend of the show from the Battle Network and Tacoma Game Clubs, He's also a big F-Zero fan. So we decided that we wanted to do sort of something different for the show. We wanted to do like an F-Zero retrospective where on our own time, we'll go back and play every single F-Zero game we can get our hands on, look up a whole bunch of history on the F-Zero series, and convene in a few weeks. We do not have a set time for this. Just whenever we feel like our personal research and our personal playing is done, we will convene probably near the end of October or the beginning of November. Just a big celebration of all things F-Zero. Everything from guest appearances of Captain Falcon to the anime to, of course, all of the games. And we'll be talking about our favorite tracks from the series and from each game. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's what is on the docket next. As for the future, we'll just have to wait and see. stayinthesave@gmail.com for all your questions, comments, and concerns. You can email us directly, and we'll try to read your email on the show if we get around to it. Then be sure to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify if you enjoyed us, or if you don't like us, and tell us why, and I will try to accommodate or take some feedback of what we can do better, because this is an ongoing show. This is a living show, so we can make changes as needed. You can find Stay of the Save at Stay of the Save on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter for updates or some hilarity, quote unquote. And of course, Stay of the Save at Twitch and YouTube for gameplay streams, as well as like some different stuff that we'll possibly try out for the future for the show. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back here with F-Zero in a few weeks, but for right now, make sure you all stay safe out there.